if you would had said that, okay, one soil is more rough surface than another soil is smooth. So which soil will be smooth and which will be rough?
Clay one
Sandy
rough.
soil will be
Yeah, sandy soil will be.
rough, coarse texture, and clay will be soft, smooth.
No, soft smooth. Then again, the thing is, you have to touch it. Just by looking
Sir,
that which soil should be rough, which soil should be smooth.
oh, sir, sandy
Yeah.
the place sandy soil smooth will be smooth.
Very good. Yeah, very good. When it is a coarse textured soil, it will give you a smooth look. The field will be smooth. And if it is a fine textured soil, the surface of the field will be very rough, you know, because it will have bigger aggregates. One of the girls said that, yes, particle size, better to call aggregate. Because when you till, fine textured soil, the aggregates are bigger. And when you till, coarse textured soil, you don't, because aggregates are very, weak. They get immediately broken up. So this is one. Okay, very good. Second question is, can you identify a soil for its salinity and sodicity without touching it or without analyzing it? But I have given the answer over here. I should not have asked this question. So if there is a white crust, so it means it is salinity. It is a saline soil. If it is a black crust at the surface of the soil, it means it is sodic soil. And or standing muddy water. This is very important that if you have a sodic soil and you apply irrigation to it, so this water will not penetrate for many days into the soil despite of the fact that soil may be coarse textured. The reason being, because of the sodium content, the soil gets dispersed, and by dispersion the pores, they get blocked and they don't allow the water to go. And at the same time, because soil is dispersed, the particles, they don't flocculate, they remain in the water. So water looks to be muddy and it will remain standing for many days, despite of the fact that your soil is coarse textured. Got it? So this is how you can identify. Then can you identify tilled and untilled soil? Very easy question. Can you identify tilled and untilled soil?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes. How? How a tilled soil will look and how untilled soil?
Till soil look
Sir,
clots.
Yeah, it will be cloudy. It will be more rougher. It will be rougher than the untilled, which is looks to be smooth. Okay. So good. Then can you identify soil compaction without measuring its bulk density?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please tell.
So in soil compaction, surface are too rough.
Too rough. Okay. And in uncompacted, the surface will not be rough.
Not as much.
But when you compact the soil, isn't it that you are making it smoother?
No, sir.
Okay. Let me give you an example. Anybody else? Anybody else want to answer this question?
sir, compact and uncompact soil, sir. Suppose soil is uncompact, then when we goes over through it, then we can feel it that whether it is compact or not compact. So if one want to walk over rice puddle soil, so he can feel it that it is really compact soil.
Okay. So not exactly. Let me give you a very simple example. You see what our students, particularly in Punjab, I'm not sure about from other states, but from North India, the students, they are always in the habit of, walking on the, grassy land. Even if there is a cemented pathway to move from one class to another class, they generally avoid that and they just to cut short their distance, they walk on the grassy land. How many of you do this? Anybody doing this or not?
Yes, sir.
Very good. You are really very honest to answer this question. So, you know, when the students, they repeatedly walk on the grassy land or a grassy lawn, what happens? After a few days, the grass disappears, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Grass will
Path
disappear
is made.
because, yeah. And in between, when there is rain, you know, where the water will be stagnant. Will it be stagnant on the, you know, that path is which you have created, or on the grass? In which part the water will remain stagnant?
Path, sir.
On the path,
On
yes.
path.
So why water stagnates over there? Because you have increased the bulk density, you have compacted the soil surface, and you have reduced the infiltration of water into the soil. So that is very simple. You can say that bulk density of this path is higher than the bulk density of the grassy land. So similarly, in a field, you know, many times people walk in a field, or you have a tractor tire. So just where there is tractor tire impression, you can say that this part is more compacted than the rest of the field. Okay, so then groundwater recharge. Yes, this is important. Light versus heavy soils. This is in fact related. But again, you know, why we call light and heavy soils? It depends because of the draft power for plowing. Light soil doesn't mean that it is light in weight, or heavy soil doesn't mean that it is heavier in weight. In fact, in light soil means coarse texture soils, we require less draft power for plowing the field. That's why we call it as light, as compared to clay soil, where we require more draft power. Then again, irrigation frequency depends upon texture of the soil. How frequently to irrigate. So which soil needs to be irrigated frequently?
Sandy soil.
Light soils.
Pardon? Somebody said
Light soil.
light.
Sandy soils.
Yes, I couldn't, I couldn't hear you. The girl student, what did you say?
Sandy soil.
Sandy, okay. So yes, sandy or coarse texture soils need to be irrigated frequently. Why?
Low retention capacity.
Water holding capacity
Is less. Water holding capacity is less, and water immediately moves out of the root zone. So you have to irrigate it frequently. And when you have to diagnose the plant disorders, you need to feel the soil texture again. By looking at the soil texture, you can tell that whether it is nutrient deficiency, or it is, you know, pathogen attack or insect attack, whatever it is. Now, just in the next section, I'll show you some practical application of soil physics, particularly from Indian context. And maybe I'm biased that Indian, I should say, from this part, North Indian context, because I have worked in this part. So I'm sorry if I could have left some, you know, practical applications of soil physics being carried out in other parts of the country. This is one, you know, the best practice we have developed at PAU in Punjab, soil metric potential based irrigation scheduling to rice. And you know, soil metric potential is measured by tensiometer, isn't it? Soil metric potential is measured by
tension.
Have you seen the tensiometer?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Very good. So all of you are aware of the tensiometer. So what we did, that the idea why to schedule it on the basis of soil metric potential. Just for the information of those students who have not studied soil water potential yet, because I understand that this course has just started 2-3 weeks back. So soil metric potential is basically the force or the energy with which water is held in the soil by the soil particles. So in fact, if on one hand side you have volumetric moisture content, you have two soils, coarse textured soil, fine textured soil. Both the soils have 15% moisture content, volumetric moisture content. Okay. Now in coarse textured soil, this 15% moisture content may be available to the plants But same 15% moisture content in fine textured soils may not be available to the plants. Can you tell me what could be the reason?
Due to
Water hold tightly to the particles.
In which soil?
Fine textures.
Very good.
Fine
Very good
texture.
answer. So that means volumetric moisture content is not good criteria for indicating the availability of water to the plants, because in fine textured soil 15% moisture is held very tightly. In coarse textured soils 15% moisture is available to the plants. It is not held with that great force as it is in fine textured soil. So then this idea came to our mind that why not to schedule irrigation to rice, because in this part of the country, the farmers, they have tendency to continuously flood the rice fields. And we have been advocating the use of intermittent irrigation, and our recommendation, you know, the last recommended, I have written over here. The recommendation is for first 15 days, you flood the soil. Thereafter, you irrigate at an interval of 2 days after complete disappearance of water. When ponded water disappears, wait for 2 days, then apply irrigation. But now this recommendation is not holding good, because you know there is a lot of climate change. Rains may be there, may not be there. Today the temperature may be very mild. Tomorrow it may be very harsh. And even the 2-day period may be too long a period to wait for irrigation. Or if the temperatures are mild, you could wait for even 5, 6, 7 days. This interval can be prolonged. So this idea came to our mind that instead of this 2-day irrigation interval, let us decide it on different metric potential values. So we tried 100 centimeters of soil metric potential, 160, 200, 250. And see the paddy yield, 64 quintals, then 64. Then when we crossed 200, now let me tell you, sorry, that at 100 centimeter, it is wetter. 160 centimeter is drier. 200 is still drier. 250 means driest. So as the value increases soil metric potential, the soil becomes dry. So when we shifted from 160 to 200, the yield decreased by 2 quintals. And we decided that let 160 centimeter be the cutoff value for irrigating on the basis of tensiometer, soil metric potential. And see irrigation water, 112 over here, then 102. So it was a saving of 31%. We could save 31% moisture if we irrigate on the basis of 160 centimeter. Now this 160 centimeter soil metric potential may occur after 2 days, it may occur after 1 day, it may occur after 10 days. Doesn't matter to us, because we are sure that the moisture is available. Now, the next problem was that this tensiometer, with the help of gauge, it was next to impossible to be used in the field of the farmers. Because of various reasons, it could get broken down, the gauge may stop working, or the farmer is not able to read that. Farmer or laborer who irrigates the field is generally an illiterate person. So when we came out with an idea. Can you see in my hand this tensiometer? Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
this is the ceramic cup as usual. Now, instead of gauge, we don't have any gauge in this tensiometer, but it is a 2-tube system. We have an outer tube which is not exactly connected with the cup. I mean, there is no connection between the water in the cup and the outer tube. But there is then small diameter inner tube which is in fact connected with the mouth of the cup. And then we have a silicone cork over here. So we carried out experiments, we tried to standardize it, and we came out that, okay, you install this tensiometer in the field at 20 centimeter depth. And after that, you have to monitor the water level in the inner tube. As the soil dries, the water comes out of this ceramic cup, okay? And this level of water in the inner tube, it will go down. Then we put a color code over here, green, yellow, and red. So as long as the water is in the green zone, don't irrigate. Once it enters into the yellow zone, irrigate immediately, and don't let the water level go into the red zone, because then it will affect your yields. And this was very simple for the farmers. And once he irrigates his field, again, this cup tries to equilibrate with the system. Water enters into, because a sort of vacuum is created. When this water goes down, since the whole system is airtight, a vacuum is created inside this. So when the farmer irrigates the field, this vacuum pulls back water into the tensiometer. This level again comes back into the green zone. So this was a recommendation. Very cheap tensiometer, very sturdy, very easy to read. We are selling it to the farmer just at rupees 450 per piece. We tried our best, but sorry to say, this has not become so popular among the farmers, because for our farmers, the electricity is free. They don't have to pay for the groundwater extraction. So then why one should go for, we are a democratic country, and we can do anything we want. We are not bothered whether the water level is going down. देखा जाएगा जब होगा. No issues, कोई बात नहीं है. So electricity is free. They are drawing water. Why they should use this and go and monitor and see this? But anyhow, that's another story. So we have some PAU students and some students from Australia. They came. Those were sponsored by Syngenta company. They came over here, stayed for 2 weeks, and they went from village to village explaining to the farmers to use this technology to save upon irrigation water. So what I say that this is the best, I should say, direct application of soil physics in the fields in agriculture. And this we got a patent for this tensiometer. This is our patented tensiometer. That is another thing. Then this was the main reason for our water table going down. Dr. Debashish, I hope I'm not taking too much of time.
No, sir. You please go ahead. It's okay.
Okay. So this our farmers, they had tendency to go for rice transplanting even in the month of May, first week of May. So May and June are very harsh months. Temperature goes up to 48, 49, and higher the temperature, higher is evapotranspiration. And you see, if the farmers, they are transplanting the crop on the 1st May, ET value was 84 centimeter. And if they delay this transplanting to 20th June, the evapotranspiration decrease from 84 to 56 centimeters, and up to 30th June, 52. Keeping this in mind, we try to convince the politicians that please don't allow the farmers to go for transplanting before 10th June at least, because if they go for 10th June, so we will be, the water table will be falling, over here by just 10 centimeters. But if they are doing it in the first week of May, the water table will fall by 70 centimeters. So somehow those were convinced. We came out with an act, and that act then prohibited the farmers to transplant rice before 10th of June. Now we have taken it to 15th of June. Then again an amendment was made of 20th of June. But again, then political decisions come. Last time they had some issues with the pandemic, and then they went to the CM and they said, let it be allowed. Then they relaxed it to 13th of June. But anyhow, our tendency is that this transplanting should coincide with, rainy season, so that this ET requirement gets reduced. And this was again the work of soil physics. I should tell you, we calculated the ET values for different dates, and then we came out with this poster. This poster was very common in every village, on the buses and trains, everywhere, that farmers, they need to save water, they need to save Punjab. So for that, they need to, they should not transplant before, 10th of June. Sorry. Now, in tensiometer or soil barometric potential, that is basically the negative pressure potential of water. We have International Rice Research Institute, IRRI. IRRI developed a concept of positive pressure potential. They call it as Pani pipe. This is nothing but a small, it was around 15 and 10, 25 centimeter long, 4-inch dia PVC tube. and 2/3 of this length of the tube, it was perforated in all the sides. So their recommendation was you insert this tube into the soil up to this, 2/3. That means 15 centimeter to be inserted into the soil and 5 centimeter above. And their recommendation was that when, this is sort of piezometer. And I hope that everybody understands piezometer. Because of the positive pressure potential, water is standing over there. This water enters into the tube and then in this level comes up. So they said that when the water level in this pani pipe, it goes 15 centimeter below the soil surface. If this is the soil surface, when water reaches 15 centimeter below this, then only irrigation should be done. So wonderful idea. Much more simpler than what we had with us, the PAU tensiometer. But sorry to say, I tried my best. This did not succeed over here in Punjab. It could be because of the two reasons. One was that our water tables are very deep. Water table immediately moves. Water from this pani pipe immediately moved down. And secondly, most of our soils are coarse and medium texture soils in Punjab. So because of those two reasons, we could not succeed in this. I tried my best even at the farm and field level. So this is another, I should say, application of soil physics. Positive pressure potential, piezometric type of concept for irrigation scheduling in rice fields. Isn't it wonderful? Okay. Then another very important, very practical issue. This is the same issue which we discussed in second slide, that aeration stress, if you remember. Now that aeration I told you because of the subsurface compaction. Now here when we normally puddle the soil, normally means at normal depth, this is the bulk density profile. You can see that immediately at 15 centimeter, the bulk density increases. Then again it decreases down. So this is because of the repeated puddlings that are sort of because of, proctor moisture content is there and hard layer is formed. So then we, in this slide, I'm trying to emphasize on 2 points. So this is in fact my PhD work. The idea was that instead of normal, plowing depth, if we puddle the soil at a shallow depth. Now this curve is for shallow depth puddling. Although compaction was there, but this compaction was above 15 centimeter and the severity of compaction was less. So the reason being, because it was above 15 centimeter, you could break this hard layer by simple cultivator. Otherwise, you have to break this hard layer with a chiseler, what you call as deep tillage. So this deep tillage concept was also given in our soil science department at PAU. And then we came out that, okay, shallow puddling could also be one, concept that by shallow puddling, you are creating the layer at a shallower depth, hard layer, and which could be broken by normal cultivation practices. This work was also published in Soil and Tillage Research Journal, good journals, and deep tillage, in fact, is very good work being carried out at PAU, not only for wheat crop, but for other crops also. Maize was very responsive to deep tillage because, maize crop is very sensitive to waterlogging conditions. So deep tillage helped over there also. Then again, a wonderful machine for in situ management of, paddy straw. As I told you, burning is a big issue. So we came out, I hope it should work. Let me tell you. Yeah, see how this machine is moving. This is sowing the crop, sowing the wheat crop, as well as just pressing, you cutting the straw and pressing it with wheels. In one operation, you can cut the straw, spread it with the wheels, sow the seed crop. In one operation, you can do all the things, and and a sort of mulch is created at the surface of the soil. So this we call this as happy seeder, and this machine is now being widely used in northern India, even in UP, Haryana, Punjab, for managing rice residues. And people are adopting it, they are buying it. So this is how in situ management, this is again the principle of soil physics. And then mulch itself, you are all aware that when we spread mulch at the surface of the soil, we are actually reducing evaporation component, not T. because most of this water which is conserved during evaporation, that goes towards the transpiration, and ET should not be affected much as evaporation is. But still, if you are able to reduce evaporation, that is good. Okay, now I was talking of that, heat penetration. This is a pretty wonderful example. Somehow this thesis, this work was done in 70s, and once I was in the library, I got hold of this thesis, and I copied these figures directly from the thesis. You can see the earlier, nowadays you make very beautiful, figures, on the computers, but at that time it was done with hand. Draftsman was preparing these figures. Anyhow, so, we have two cases over here. One is June 5th, and this is for July. This is June month, this is July month. The only difference is June is very dry month, harsh, and July is, wet season. So it is a bare soil. And in bare soil, see what is this. Can you see the first curve? This is 0 to 5 centimeter soil layer. Okay, starting from here in the morning at 8 a.m. Then see how the temperature at 5 centimeter increases, this. And you will ask me, where is the air temperature? This dotted line is air temperature. So that means peak coming over here. If peak comes over here, I mean air temperature peak comes around 12 somewhere. But in soil, this peak comes after 1. And as you go deep, this is 5 centimeter, this is 10 centimeter. This is 15 centimeter. This is 30 centimeter. So as you go deep, this peak decreases and peak is shifted towards, 1 p.m., 2 p.m. So this is because this layer at this time in the morning, it warms up. Then this gets more warm because being the surface layer, then 10 centimeter, then 15 centimeter, then 30 centimeter. And see what is happening at 50 centimeter. This cross line, this is not showing any diurnal variations. Similarly, this is solid triangle, this is at 100 centimeter. So we call this depth as damping of depth, because damping of depth is the layer below which there is no heat penetration. So that means heat penetrated only up to 50 centimeter. So this was a wonderful example. And see over here, the same trend. But the only thing is, the magnitude of the value has decreased, soil temperature has decreased because the rains were there. Now the moisture content is high over here, and otherwise trend is same. And coming over here, here we have a crop, and leaf area index is 0.52 in June 5th. So in July 2, the rain, this is 5.88 because the leaf area index has increased. So here we have a double effect of rain as well as the crop, because crop is also, intercepting the incoming heat waves. So because of this, the curves have come down, but again, 50 and 100 centimeter are straight lines. This is what I wanted to show you, the diurnal variations of soil temperature. And I'm sure that generally in classrooms, we don't go in such details that what is happening at 5 centimeter, what is happening at 10, 15 or different depths. We simply teach you that this is the diurnal temperature and variations in soil and in the atmosphere. Okay. Then one more example of practical value. This is direct seeded rice. You might be listening about it. This is, I will say that this is now ornamental. I should be fair enough because I worked on direct seeded rice for more than 5 years. I didn't succeed, but many people, I don't know why they are doing this, but they are saying that this is a water saving. Let me tell you that this DSR, direct seeded, this is a direct function of the clay content. See over here, the clay content 37%. And minimum amount of irrigation water. And if the clay content increases to 17%, see 1800 millimeter of water. Whereas in puddled soil, we have just 1600 millimeter of irrigation water consumption. So that means if you have a sandy soil, coarse textured soil with 80% sand, it is going to consume more water than puddled transplanted crop. Otherwise, it is a myth. People are saying why they are doing this. They are saying simply they count number of irrigations. So no doubt number of irrigations are less in DSR, but they never see that what is the amount of water per irrigation in direct seeded rice. You know, when you puddle the soil, you are in fact, you are decreasing the infiltration rate by 1/3. So if you have unpuddled system, as in direct seeded rice, the infiltration rate is higher. When infiltration rate is higher, the residence time of water at the surface is more. More the residence time, more will be the irrigation water consumption. So this is where we have to see. So just don't count the number of irrigations that you have more number of irrigation in puddled, and if you are applying, you can 1 acre field can be irrigated just with 3 centimeter of water, 3.5 centimeter of water. But the same 1 acre field, if it is direct seeded rice without puddling, it will be consuming more than 8 centimeter of water. So if you have fewer irrigation, you multiply by a higher amount of irrigation, that irrigation amount will be there. So see again, grain yield also a function of sand content. Simple reason that because you are applying more water, it is going down, it is taking nutrients along with it. That's why you have, the grain yield also decreases. So here also soil physics come into play, but unfortunately agronomists and soil fertility people, they just don't actually measure the irrigation water. They don't see the texture of the soil. They don't see the structure of the soil. They just go for simple measurements and say, okay, this is this. Okay, then perhaps this should be the last one. Yeah, this is the last slide. Some methodologies we could develop for soil physics. Like, I don't know how many of you are aware of the hydrometer method. Are you aware of hydrometer method? For particle size distribution? Okay, very good. So, in hydrometer, it started with Biokas. Biokas said that, okay, you take hydrometer readings here 4 minutes for silt plus clay and 2 hours for clay. That is fine. And then you give temperature correction. Then came Day. Day said, no, you have to take the readings for up to 8 hours and then you go for that curve and all that. Then again, this is the work which I did during my master's, and this was not part of my thesis. My advisor gave me this work and he had already started work on it. So we said, okay, you take readings for just 2 hours. And after that, you can discard the apparatus, and simply by making calculations, we develop an empirical equation which could predict the values for up to 8 or 10 hours. And then, so we call this as modified Day's hydrometer method. And good thing is, this method was then in some country, New Zealand. In New Zealand, they published a paper and the title was Soar and Kuckel's hydrometer method for particle size distribution. And they got very good results, which were comparable to the, original Day's hydrometer method. So this is one methodology. This paper was published in Soil Science Journal. Then we have a very, I don't know whether you are aware of this PAU soil moisture gauge. This is a very simple instrument having this basal flask and tubular stopper. And I'm not going into detail that what is principle of this, but you can measure instantly the moisture content of the soil as well as particle density of the soil. So if sometimes in future, if I get time, I can show you the principle and methodology how to do it. Then we have another method developed by PAU scientists, our predecessors, our seniors, our mentors, determination of bulk density by Claude saturation method. I don't know whether you're aware of this, but this is again a wonderful method. You can immediately measure, and this will be, of course, undisturbed soil because you bring the clod from the field and you can measure it. Then there is one method, I'm not much aware of it. It's a rapid method for direct determination of air porosity. Then again, during my PhD, I developed a simple device. We had a Proctor penetrometer. So I might modify that Proctor penetrometer, standardize it for measuring puddling depth, that up to which depth the soil has been puddled. Then development of rainfall simulator based on concept of air water pressure. Generally, rain simulators, they are based on, nozzle. Drop formers are the nozzles. But here we give a concept that there is a standard water pressure, and then we apply some standard air pressure, And then you can create an array or spectrum of differential size raindrops, which actually happens in under natural conditions. So, and then we did develop a single rain drop simulator. Here, this is Marriott arrangement, and this is the draw former over here. This is simply PVC tube. The idea was to see the erodibility of the aggregates, or you can say, in other words, stability of the aggregates. So based on this, we gave an idea. We call it as stability index based on single raindrop technique. So this is how we could do it, some of the methodologies. But I'm sure, and I apologize that I have not included the work done in other organizations in the country, but this is my dream.